I can't believe that's It's okay though, you did a good job.
Alright. I suppose you can peek on that camera there and see if my head's cut off on our stream, can we? Perfect. Good to know.
Won't be long to autograph it.
Alright, so welcome everybody. It is 3:30, so it is time for our daily after-school STEM show. Today we have a little bit of a live audience with us, but just so our live audience knows, we are also live streaming this to our Facebook and our Twitch and our YouTube, so anything you say or do on camera here is going to go out to the public, so be mindful. And similarly, guests out in the audience, if you want to lob some questions up, be happy to do so, but just be aware that there's guests off screen here, so if you hear some audio coming from the back or I'm answering questions that aren't necessarily coming from you guys, it's coming from a different source. So I'll try and accommodate both audiences here as best as I can. And so today what we are doing is one of our bi-weekly snake feedings. And so we feed the snakes here once every 2 weeks. We have five live snakes here at the Headwater Science Center, and we feed all of them on the same schedule. Realistically, most of these snakes do not have to be fed this much. We are feeding more often than we need to for a lot of these snakes, but it is easy for us in maintaining our schedule if we have them all on the same schedule. So in order to minimize variance in our care, which in my experience minimizes mistakes in care, we feed them all every other week, and we adjust the size of the food accordingly. And conveniently, a lot of snakes are actually pretty good about not eating if they're not hungry. So snakes are pretty good about not overeating and getting too heavy if they don't need the food. But today we are going to be feeding, like I said, all 5 snakes. And our first one we're going to be doing today is Rusty. And Rusty is our second biggest snake here. He is a red-tailed boa. And Rusty is actually our newest snake here at the Science Center. We've had him for about 1.5 years. I think it was last November that we got him, November 2019. And he was a pet before he was here, so he's not just 1.5 years old or whatever. He is, I think, 13 or 14 right now, which is adult for a red-tailed boa. I wouldn't say it's old yet, but they can live to be late 20s, 30-ish is about how old you can kind of hope for him to get in good conditions. And so Rusty, when he's fully stretched out, is about 8 feet long, probably weighs 12-ish pounds right now, I would guess. And Rusty tends to be the most voracious eater of the bunch. I don't know if he's skipped a meal the entire time we've had him. Boas, red tails are known for being pretty voracious eaters, so it's not all that surprising. Some of the other snakes that we're going to offer food today probably aren't going to take them. We're going to offer food to 5 snakes, and maybe 3 of them will eat, maybe 2 of them will eat, maybe just 1 will eat. Who knows? But we are actually going to have one of our volunteers be doing the feeding today, and so I have Tristan here with me. And what our rats are going to be, what our snakes are going to be eating are going to be mice or rats, depending on the size of the animal. So big snakes get a big rat, small snakes get a small mouse. And so that's what I have in my casserole dish here. So you have been forewarned. Inside my dish here are a bunch of dead rats and mice. So if you don't want to see that, don't get mad at me because I warned you. And as you can see, we have a bunch of different sizes here. And so, like I said, Rusty is our second biggest snake. So he's going to get our second biggest mouse, which is probably going to be this one here, or rat. And so the other thing you might notice is that we have some newspapers on the bottom of his tank here. You'll notice that his bedding that he has here is kind of wood chips, kind of barky. We buy these rats frozen, and then the way we thaw them out is we just put them in a bucket of water and let them thaw out. So the rats are wet right now. And what happens when something is wet, obviously, is that stuff sticks to it. And we don't want that bark sticking to that rat as the snake is swallowing it. Because then it is swallowing the bark with it. And a little bit of that is not the end of the world, but if it's swallowing too much of that bark, that can be a problem for the snake's digestive tract, so we put the newspapers down there as kind of a placemat for them. And so, you want to take the tongs there, Tristan?
Which one?
Middle one. And you want to try and bait him over onto the newspapers there. I'll get out of your way here.
Oh no.
And so, like I said, a little bit's not the end of the world. We'd like him to get it on the paper, but if he doesn't get it, it's not the end of the world. It's okay. We're not going to go in there and fight him for that rat by any means. But what you'll see him do is he will grab it and he'll coil around it, and he'll try and hold that. So right before I came out here, the last thing I did before I started this is I threw these guys in the microwave. And so they are a little bit warmer than what the room around us is. They're not just room temperature warm. They are zapped in a microwave for a minute warm. And so what he's going to do is he's going to sit there, he's going to wrap his body around it, and he's going to hold it until that rat gets down to roughly room temperature. And then he's going to start swallowing it. He wants to make sure it's dead before he starts swallowing it, basically, is where we're going here. Because as you can imagine, trying to swallow a live rat, rats have teeth, rats have claws, they're going to try and fight you as it's going down, and I don't know, I don't want a rat scratching the inside of my esophagus, that sounds bad, and neither does a snake. So next, and can I get a volunteer over here to maintain the cart and push it around as we're going here? Well, I have a staff of volunteers who are pointing at our snake here. Alright, you doing this one? Alright, so this is going to be the one you're giving her. Alright, and so our next snake is a ball python. And Jeannie is our third largest snake. And ball pythons are, when I speak of ones that probably aren't going to be eating every time we offer food, this is the main one I'm referring to. Ball pythons notoriously don't eat much, and if you want to just tap her in the nose with it, we'll see what she does. She rears back, she's probably not going to take it. Sometimes she'll strike right at it. So I would just, bump her in the nose with it, let her know it's there, and then if she doesn't take it, I just lay it down in there. And we'll leave that in there overnight. Ball pythons are naturally nocturnal critters. They are more active at night. And so oftentimes if she doesn't take it during the day, she will come and scoop it up at night. She also just tends to be a little bit kind of crowd shy. She's not, she wants to hide. Ball pythons are notoriously sort of reclusive. They're very popular as pet snakes because they're pretty, but in my opinion, like behavior-wise, they're not my favorite because they spend most of their time hiding. Not the most personable snakes out there. So like I said, a lot of times she'll take it overnight, but ball pythons are known for being able to go exceptionally long amounts of time without eating. So she's actually, no, she did eat the last feeding, but the feeding before the last feeding, I think she skipped like 4 in a row. I have to go back and I document all this. I have a notepad in the back that I document all this on. So before 2 weeks ago, she hadn't eaten in 8 weeks. And that was something that we weren't even really concerned about. Ball pythons are well documented being able to go like a year plus without eating and being fine. And how that works is, when you think about it in the context of a human, when we're eating, we're eating because we need calories, we need energy. And so, where is all that energy going? Why do we need those calories? It's going mainly to 2 places. It's going to our brain, which is huge and takes up a ton of energy, but also it's going towards the furnace, keeping that 98.6 degrees. Takes a ton of energy to maintain. So when you're a snake, you say, okay, I'm going to be cold-blooded. I don't have the furnace going really ever. My brain isn't really doing a whole lot. I'm kind of don't have a very advanced brain. I'm kind of dumb. And then you combine that with I spend 95% of my time just laying in the same place and not moving, and all of a sudden the calorie needs go way down. And so, like I said, there's a number of species of snake out there, especially kind of the heavier bodied ones that can go months and months and months at a time without eating. Like I said, boa is known for being pretty voracious eaters, but we've had the prior boa that lived in that tank before the one that's in there now. At one point when I was like first starting here, went 7 months without eating, and we honestly weren't even really concerned about it yet at that point. Because then when he decided to food every 2 weeks, and then 1 week he was like, okay, time to eat again. And then he was just back on his normal schedule. He's taking food every 2 weeks. It's a normal thing for snakes. Temperature's got a lot to do with it. Kind of the activity around them's got a lot to do with it. And next we're going to move over to Sophie, who is the corn snake here. And Z, if you want to move the cart, and then hop around to the other side of the cart to be our feeder. Watch the cord. Trying to unplug ourselves. So corn snakes, like Sophie, are probably the most popular species of pet snake out there. You can find them in most pet stores. Sophie is our youngest snake, so she is, I think, 4 years old. And we've had her for about 2 years. So she was a couple years old when we got her, and she's probably not going to get a whole lot bigger than she is now. Part of the reason it's so popular as pets is because they stay at a pretty manageable size throughout their whole lives. And one interesting thing that Sophie's got going on right now is that she's actually coming into a shed here pretty soon. So you might, hard to tell if you don't see her every day and like have that kind of relative view of it. There you go. But she is definitely kind of cloudy right now, kind of foggy looking relative to how she usually is. And a lot of the times when they are coming into a shed, a lot of times they'll actually skip meals. So she was one I was kind of half expecting not to grab her food today, but as you saw there when Z put the mouse in, Sophie hopped right on top of it. But one of the things you'll see is that Sophie actually bit it kind of on the side. So snakes have to swallow their food whole, and what that means is they're kind of limited in the way they can swallow it. You can't swallow something wide, whole. So what you'll see her doing, as she's already starting here actually, is readjusting it so she can swallow it head first, because that's just an easier way to get it down. And so you'll see her working on that. Looks like Rusty's starting to get to work on his, actually swallowing it too. Next up is going to be the hognose snake, Sally, who's right around the corner here.